Miyako-san and Japan Foundation Los Angeles for inviting me to talk this evening about yokai. I'm just going to share my screen so you can see some of the lovely yokai that are a really important part of Japanese culture. As Miyako-san said, I'm a Japanese art historian, and I've long had an interest in the mysterious supernatural side of Japanese art and culture as well. And yokai to me are really one of the most fascinating aspects of Japan. And there are many unique aspects to these supernatural creatures that you don't see in other cultures. The term yokai refers to all types of supernatural beings and mysterious phenomena that can't be explained. And these can be part of the natural world, but they can also be part of daily life as well. And they've been part of Japanese culture and legends and folklore for centuries, and they're still a very strong and important part of Japanese culture today. Now, Japan Foundation has created a series of 7 short videos about yokai, which are very well done. I've been watching them with great interest and learning a lot. My talk today will give an introduction to some of the main types of yokai, and I'm illustrating it with images of yokai from Japanese woodblock prints and woodblock printed books that are in the collection of Scripps College in Claremont. And these were all included in an exhibition that I curated last year on yokai, a traveling exhibition I curated for Scripps College. And this is one of the images I'll talk about a little bit later. Now, the word yokai, you'll see here the characters for the word yokai in Japanese. The first character, yo, means attractive or bewitching, and the second character, kai, means a wonder or a mystery. And the word has been used relatively recently to encompass the many supernatural and mysterious creatures and occurrences in Japan. But records of these mysterious and supernatural creatures go back as early as the first written records in Japan to the 8th century, to the Nihon Shoki, which is one of the first and most important documents, historical documents about the country. But back at that time, they weren't referred to as yokai. The very earliest types of supernatural creatures were usually referred to as mononoke or perhaps bakemono and obake. But these are all today sort of lumped into the larger type of creature known as yokai. Now, illustrations of these yokai go back as early as about the 14th century to many of the wonderful illustrated hand scrolls that were created often in Buddhist temples by Buddhist monk artists. There's one very famous hand scroll that depicts a rather spooky gathering of yokai, or supernatural creatures, known as the Hyakki Yagyo, the night parade of 100 demons. And this is a concept of a gathering of supernatural creatures and kind of weird beings. This concept goes back as early as the Heian period, so about 1,000 years. And the idea of the night parade of 100 demons is still very popular in Japan today. And you see the image on the left here is a woodblock printed image from the 20th century, from about 1950, by a print artist called Junichiro Sekino. And you'll see rather strange creatures here: a giant frog, a fox, a tengu, a mountain spirit with a long nose, and I'm not sure who this one is, but another rather strange creature. There are many wonderful creatures in this night parade. On the right here, you'll see an image of a number of rather weird-looking yokai that look like it could be something out of modern manga or anime. But they depict a bunch of yokai who are released from a basket in a tale from Japanese folklore called the cut-tongued sparrow, or the shitakiri suzume, in which a very greedy individual opens up a basket hoping to find treasures, but instead releases a whole horde of yokai into the world. So there are many, many different types of yokai. These are some images of a few examples. I won't be able to talk about them all today because there are thousands of them and they're increasing in numbers daily. The fox, or kitsune, has many different magical powers that I'll talk about soon. There's the kappa, who's a river, a water creature, who also has some interesting powers and gets up to all sorts of mischief. There are oni, which are usually translated as demons or ogres in English. And there are ghosts, the yure. And there are monster cats, ghost cats called bakemono or even nekomata. And finally, there's a really interesting group of sort of spooky objects called tsukumogami, which are basically animated objects that normally are inanimate. So I'll be talking about these and a few other types of yokai as we go through. I just wanted to let you know that there are so many types of yokai, and they've been so popular in Japan, particularly in the Edo period in the 18th, 19th century. There was a huge boom, a lot of interest in yokai. And so much so that in the late 18th century, a man called Toriyama Sekien created the first sort of encyclopedia cataloging all the different types of yokai that he knew about at the time. And so they are still popular today, as I'm sure you all know. Now, there's a very strong link between yokai and kami, which are another supernatural being that there are millions of in Japan. The kami are basically higher beings or gods that inhabit all aspects of nature, mountains, rivers, interesting looking rocks, trees. And kami are believed to control nature. They are considered to be responsible for all the good things that happen in nature, for good harvests, for good weather, for anything positive, but also for some of the negative things that happen, like storms, disasters, like earthquakes, tsunamis, and fires and floods. So with kami, the Japanese have long felt that if you are respectful to kami, you honor them, respect them, and make offerings to kami, they will be kind to you and bestow you with a good harvest and good weather and no earthquakes and other natural disasters. But if you ignore and disrespect the kami, that's when the disasters can come about. This belief in kami is now known as Shinto, and the Japanese make offerings and worship the kami in Shinto shrines, also in small shrines in their homes, and also entertain the kami at festivals. There's always a festival every day. There's somewhere in Japan there's a festival going on, and these festivals are to honor and entertain and keep the kami happy to try and prevent any sort of disaster. So the kami are generally invisible, though they have been depicted in art and occasionally in statue form or in paintings, but they're generally invisible, mysterious creatures, as are yokai. And yokai function in similar ways to kami in that, if generally speaking, yokai will behave better if you treat them better. They'll behave worse if you treat them worse. And there's an awful lot of overlap between the kami and the yokai. For example, the kami of the harvest is Inari-sama, and Inari will make sure the rice harvest goes well if you pray to the deity. And there is a fox, or two foxes usually outside the shrine of Inari. The fox statue is there because the fox is considered to be a messenger of the rice, the god of the harvest and of rice. And the fox is attributed with various magical powers as well, and in some cases can actually be a yokai, in particular because of its shape-shifting powers. So this is one area where there is a blur between the yokai and kami. In the world of earthquakes and storms, there are certain creatures attached to both of these. In Japanese tradition, a large catfish is believed to live under the islands of Japan, and when it moves, that's how the earthquakes are created. And here you see an image of a catfish dressed as a Buddhist monk. There's a very complicated print. I won't go into it too much. And beside the catfish is the image of the god of thunder, Raijin, who is considered to be a kami, but is also depicted like a demon or an oni. so is sort of a kami, but also sort of a yokai. So there is definite overlap between these two different types of supernatural beings. Now, this is an interesting instance where you have a human who becomes a kami, who becomes a yokai and then becomes a kami. This is an image of Sugawara no Michizane. He was a courtier during the Heian period, and he became embroiled in some scandals and was banished from the capital and died in remote, well, in Kyushu. It's not actually that remote, but at the time it felt very remote. And after his death, a number of floods and storms and natural disasters plagued the capital, and the emperor decided that it was probably because of Michizane's angry ghost that these disasters were happening. So this is an image here of Michizane causing lightning. So this depicts the angry ghost of Michizane, so the yokai of Michizane. And so in order to appease the angry ghost, the emperor made Michizane into a kami, and he became the kami who is known as Tenjin, and he is the kami of education. He's worshipped very widely in Japan today, especially around exam time. So here you see a depiction of Tenjin riding a bull. He's associated with a bull. So this is a very interesting area where there's a very strong overlap between human, kami, and yokai. Now, probably the most famous and popular kind of yokai is the oni. And oni go back as early as the first written records in Japan to about the 8th century. We see references to oni as destructive creatures who cause a lot of problems, usually natural disasters and fires in the cities. And they have been depicted in the very earliest depictions of yokai as well in the 14th century in hand scrolls made in Buddhist temples. They often look like the sort of demons that are depicted in Buddhist hells as well. So there is a bit of a connection with Buddhism, Buddhist imagery as well. They are typically depicted with red skin and with fangs and horns, and wearing loincloths with with rippling muscles. They're very fierce and scary looking creatures. They are typically considered to be evil and destructive, but in some cases, oni can also have protective powers. And if you worship oni, they can actually help you. And if you watch the videos, you'll find out there's a particular area in Japan where oni are worshipped. There's a connection with Japanese architecture as well that you'll learn about in the videos. This is an image that's late 19th century by Kawanabe Kyosai, who's one of my favorite artists. He depicted many yokai. And here you see Otafuku, who's a folk goddess, and she is throwing beams out the window, and she is shouting, "Oni wa soto, fuku wa uchi," which is what you typically do at the Lunar New Year in Japan. So you banish the oni. You say, "Oh, out with the oni, in with the good luck." And so you throw beams out, and that scares the demons away. And this is a late 19th century version of this image. And oni they feature very often in legends and folk tales. These are two woodblock prints that depict a couple of heroes who defeated demons at various different points in history. This is Sadanobu, who was a counselor to an emperor in Kyoto, and he was going into the palace on some imperial business, and a demon came up and threatened him, and he turned and basically stood up to the demon and told him if anybody tries to get between him and his business for the emperor, he would be in trouble. And he actually ended up scaring the demon so much that the demon ran off, according to legend. So that's the demon being scared and not sure what's happening to his arm there. And this is another illustration of another brave warrior, Tametomo, who is believed to have scared away the smallpox demons, or the oni who brought smallpox to Japan. And so this was particularly interesting to me. I just discovered this image in the last few years. So interesting to me that Oni were considered to be carriers of plagues. And here he is scaring off the smallpox demons. I believe he fired an arrow at them, and that scared them off. There were also female demons called Kijo, and they are also believed to be pretty fierce. This is a print here that shows a warrior who is attacking this female demon, or Kijo, who has shipwrecked. She's wrecked a ship, and he's rescued one of the sailors from the ship and is battling with this fierce demon or demoness. And here, this is an image from a No theater where there are often characters. There are these demonic female characters who wear masks with horns and wild hair. And many of the female characters have actually, in the legends depicted in No plays, have become demons because of jealousy or rage that transforms them from beautiful women into these demonic, fierce-looking demons. Now, another beloved yokai is the kappa, and this is an image from the Japan Foundation website. Kappa are water creatures. They're believed to live in rivers and ponds throughout Japan and all over Japan. In fact, they have different names in different parts of Japan, but generally they're known as kappa. And they're roughly the size of a child. They are supposed to have green skin. They have webbed hands and feet. And most importantly, on top of their very sort of rough-looking hair, they have a plate on their heads, a sort of saucer. And the saucer has to contain water. If the kappa falls over and the water spills out, he will lose his power and perhaps even die. So it's very important for him to keep well hydrated. Now, the kappa is considered mostly a mischievous creature, but can also be quite evil and destructive, and is believed to drag people into rivers to their death. And so children were often warned not to go too close to the river because they might be attacked by a kappa. They're also believed to kill people and go after their blood and their internal organs. There's a very peculiar legend of kappa chasing after a mythical ball inside the human body called the shirikodama. And the ball is actually apparently just inside the anus. And there are stories of kappa attacking people by the river and trying to remove this shirikodama from them. And I think this is what's going on in this image here. This is a drawing of a kappa by Hokusai, who is Japan's most well-known artist. And here you see the kappa in the water. I believe this man is just smoking, possibly using the river as a toilet. And you can tell that this man is in a lot of trouble at this moment. We come back to the fox, or kitsune, who's the messenger of the harvest god Inari-sama. And traditionally in Japan, the fox or kitsune is a very benign creature and has magical powers. It is considered able to light fires, or create fires with its tail. And these fires are called kitsunebi, fox fires. And there are reportings of people seeing foxfires all over the countryside, and we don't know what they really are. There are some potentially some natural phenomena that look like fires appearing in the evening in fields. So they've been attributed to foxes, and there are many legends of foxes gathering, particularly at this tree near Edo, or modern-day Tokyo, and on New Year's Eve, and they gather together and they light their tails up and create these kitsunebi. And according to legend, the more foxes that are there and the more kitsunebi that are seen on New Year's Eve, the better the harvest will be, the rice harvest will be the next year. And this is what's being depicted here in this woodblock print by Hiroshige, showing the kitsune, a gathering of foxes at the tree near Oji, which is the big shrine to Inari in Edo. Now, foxes are also considered to have shape-shifting powers. And in traditional Japanese folklore, the foxes shapeshift for good reasons. For example, if a fox has been rescued by a woodcutter in the woods, rescued from a trap, the fox will show its gratitude by transforming into a beautiful woman and then marrying the woodcutter. And this is what you see here in the image on the left. This is by Yoshitoshi, late 19th century artist, who depicts this particular woman in a particular story called Kuzunoha, who has transformed from a fox into a beautiful woman, has married a woodcutter, and they've had a child together. But unfortunately, her true form has been revealed, and you can see it showing behind the shoji screen. And now that her true form is revealed, she has to leave her family behind. And you can see this very sad image of a little child who somehow knows that his mother is leaving him. So the fox is a good, benign creature in Japanese folklore. However, there's a wicked fox that comes into Japanese folklore from the continent, the Chinese fox. The Chinese fox, magical fox, has the power to transform into a woman as well. But this power is usually used to bewitch men and to possess them and steal their energy, their yang energy, because foxes are creatures of the night. They are yin creatures, so they're looking for yang. And the most powerful of all of these foxes is the nine-tailed fox, or Kyubi. And a lot of people who watch anime and watch Naruto know that Naruto is, he contains the demon of the nine-tailed fox. And so this story is alive, very much alive today in Japan. And this image here by Chikanobu, also late 19th century, shows this, the nine-tailed fox transformed into a woman, Lady Tamamo, who married the emperor and was causing all sorts of trouble in the court until she was found out. And this is her lashing out. And up above, you see the hunters hunting down the nine-tailed fox because they realize that the nine-tailed fox, she is really the nine-tailed fox in a female form. And we also have wicked cats in Japan, the bakeneko, or ghost cats, who can cause fires. They can cause all sorts of trouble, and usually in the cities. They can transform into humans. They can walk on two legs. They often have two tails, and they can be very wicked, particularly the nekomata, like this one, which can cause a lot of destruction and harm. Causing fires was really disastrous in Japan's cities. And this is an image of, I believe, a firefighter who has been protecting a certain neighborhood in Edo from fires, and the nekomata presumably was the cause of one of the fires. And here you see the sort of wicked witch cat in a kabuki play depicted in a woodblock print, also in the 19th century. And there are also yokai, which are basically humans that are in a state of transformation. This is a famous woman, Kiyohime, who fell in love with a priest. He did not return her love. Long story short, she's transformed into a serpent, and she ended up killing him. And her life didn't end well either. But this is her in mid-transformation. The scales, the diamonds on her kimono represent the scales of the serpent that she's transforming into. And here you see a fascinating yokai called a rokurokubi. And these are strange creatures that look normal during the day. Usually they're women, and at night when they're asleep, their heads, basically their necks extend and their heads sort of travel around the house looking for bugs and other things to eat. And this is a character who's stayed the night in the home and is encountering one of these rokurokubi creatures in the night. And then we have the ghosts. The ghosts are a very important part of the whole yokai culture in Japan. The yurei, or obake. But yurei are some of the most, there are so many stories of ghosts in Japan that go back to the tale of Genji. This is the ghost of Lady Yugao, who was one of Prince Genji's lovers. And she died mysteriously, possibly killed by the spirit, the living spirit of another of his lovers who was jealous of her. And so here we see her, not a scary ghost, more of a tragic ghost, surrounded by the flowers that are also called yugao. And here's a more terrifying ghost, the ghost of Okiku, who is a maidservant who was pursued by an unpleasant retainer in the castle where she lived, and she rejected his advances, and he basically had her accused of losing one of his master's plates, and that was punishable by death. So she threw herself in a well, or he tossed her in a well. There are many versions of the story, and so she died, and then came back and haunted him. And in her haunting, she was counting the plates, looking for the 10th plate, which was the missing plate in a set of 10. So she appears in many ghost stories in Japan today, in movies and anime. But a really terrifying ghost. And here's another terrifying ghost, Oiwa, who was poisoned by her husband who had taken a lover, and her face was deformed by the poison, and she came back to haunt him and terrified him and get her revenge. This is another 20th century image of her here, but this is by Hokusai in one of his manga. The yokai were extremely popular, as I said, in the 19th century. Many books, printed books, came out containing yokai. Ghost stories were also very popular, especially on summer evenings. People would tell stories of ghosts like Okiku and Oiwa. A final type of yokai here is really quirky and interesting. These are the tsukumogami, and they tsukumogami, sorry. And they are the spirits of inanimate objects like fans and shamisen, musical instruments, umbrellas, braziers, water scoops, and geta, even shoes. And it's been believed that after 100 years, objects become spirits. But if they are thrown away or not used, not given the respect they deserve, they often can come back and cause all sorts of havoc. They're not vengeful and evil, but they can be mischievous creatures, these tsukumogami. And this is 20th century, I think 1930s, a series of images of tsukumogami, different types that are evidence that we should look after things more carefully. We shouldn't throw away things so readily, which we do very much today. So I hope this has been a useful, very brief introduction to yokai, and it entices you to go onto the Japan Foundation website and check out the various different videos on yokai. And if you're interested in finding out how oni have helped a particular part of Japan, and how they help in architecture to protect buildings, and how kappa have helped protect Tokyo or Edo from flooding. And if you want to see an image of a mummy of a kappa from Kyushu, from a sake brewery in Kyushu, you can check out these videos, and you'll learn a lot about not only how yokai have been an important part of Japanese culture over the centuries, but how important they are in many aspects of Japanese culture today, from food to manga, and even to the revitalization of certain Japanese towns.